Welcome to Chapter 2. In this chapter, we're going to be covering fractions. A fraction is normally written as the division of whole numbers. 1/5 means one part of a total of 5 parts. The two numbers that form a fraction are given specific names. The top number is the numerator and the bottom number is the denominator. And one way to remember this is the D in denominator for down. If a board is divided into 8 equal parts, each part is 1/8 of the whole board. So 3 parts of the board would be 3/8. There are two types of fractions, proper and improper. In a proper fraction, the numerator, top number, must be less than the denominator, bottom number. Some examples of proper fractions are 1/2, 1 is less than 2, and 2/3, 2 is less than 3. An improper fraction is greater than or equal to 1, so the numerator is greater than or equal to the denominator. Some examples of improper fractions: 5/3, 5 is greater than 3, and 15/12, 15 is greater than 12. In a mixed number, it's an improper fraction written as the sum of a whole number and a proper fraction. So for instance, 2.5, 2 is the whole part, 1/2 is the fraction part. An improper fraction can be written as a mixed number by dividing the numerator by the denominator and getting a whole number, then putting the remainder over the denominator. Let's write 13/5 as a mixed number. 13 divided by 5 is 2 with a remainder of 3. So the mixed number would be 2 3/5. 2 is the whole part and 3/5 is the fraction part. We can rewrite 2 3/5 as an improper fraction. Multiply the denominator by the whole number part and then add the numerator. Put that result over the denominator. So writing 2 3/5 as an improper fraction, 2 times 5 is 10 plus 3 is 13. We put 13 over 5 to return to the improper fraction 13/5. Equivalent fractions are two fractions that represent the same number. For example, 1/2 and 2/4 are equivalent fractions because both represent the same portion of a whole. So think of a pie. Divide a pie into 4 parts. Half the pie is 2 out of the 4 parts. 2/4 and 1/2 are the same. To get equivalent fractions, multiply the numerator and the denominator of the first fraction by the same number. The result will be an equivalent fraction to that first fraction. So let's find an equivalent fraction of 3/4. You can multiply the numerator and the denominator by any number you want as long as it's the same number, and you'll get an equivalent fraction. So let's multiply by 5. 3/4 times 5/5. 3 times 5 is 15. 4 times 5 is 20. So an equivalent fraction to 3/4 is 15/20. Try on your own. Find an equivalent fraction for 5/9 with a denominator of 27. Stop the video, and then we'll go over the answer on the next slide. To get an equivalent fraction for 5/9 with a denominator of 27, we need to multiply the denominator by 3. If we multiply the denominator by 3, we have to multiply the numerator by 3. So 5/9 times 3/3 equals the equivalent fraction 15/27. Lowest terms. You will need to know how to write a fraction in lowest terms. And what that means is you're going to replace a fraction with an equivalent fraction in its simplest form. You will often hear this called reducing a fraction to its lowest terms. So write the fraction 16/32 in lowest terms. We need to find a number that will divide into both the top and the bottom so that they can't be divided anymore. For this particular fraction, we know 16 will go into both the top and the bottom. So we divide 16 by 16, and that's 1. We divide 32 by 16, and that's 2. So the resulting lowest term fraction is 1/2, which cannot be divided into lowest terms, into any lower terms. You might not know the lowest term immediately. You can start by dividing the numerator and the denominator by any numbers, and then you keep dividing until you can't divide any longer, and that means you've reached the lowest term of the fraction. Try this before you look at the next slide. Let's reduce 30 over 48 to lowest terms. So stop the video and then continue. Reduce 30 over 48 to lowest terms. You know 3 will go into both, so start with 3. That'll reduce the fraction to 10 over 16. 30 divided by 3 is 10. 48 divided by 3 is 16. 10 and 16 are both even, so you know at least 2 will go into both of them. So let's divide 10 over 16 by 2 over 2. So 10 divided by 2 is 5, and 16 divided by 2 is 8. That will give you 5 over 8. 5 is a prime number. You can't reduce 5 any longer, so 5 over 8 is 30 over 48 in its lowest terms. If the denominator of a fraction will divide evenly into the numerator, then the answer is going to be a whole number. For the fraction 6 over 3, the lowest term is the whole number 2, since 6 divided by 3 is 2. Another way to write a whole number is to put the whole number over 1. 2 over 1 is the same as 2. And this is going to be very helpful to know when you start performing operations on fractions. Here's a practical example. A technician needs to dilute antiseptic for use in hand washing before and after surgery. The instructions say that 250 milliliters of antiseptic should be added to 750 milliliters of water. What fraction of the final solution is water? We know the total solution is 250 milliliters plus 750 milliliters, and that equals 1,000 milliliters. The portion of the total that is water is 750 milliliters. So that'll be the numerator, or the top of the fraction. The total amount in the solution, 1,000 milliliters, goes in the denominator, or bottom of the fraction. So your fraction is going to be 750 over 1,000. That is not in lowest terms. We know 250 will go evenly into 750 and 1,000. 750 divided by 250 is 3. 1,000 divided by 250 is 4. 3 is prime, so 3/4 is the lowest term fraction for 750 over 1,000. Comparing fractions. When you compare two fractions, you have to have the same denominator in both in order to be able to compare them. So you'll have to change one or both to an equivalent fraction that have the same denominator. Compare 2/3 and 5/8, which is larger? Well, you don't know. They have different denominators, so we need to make both of them have the same denominator. The easiest way to do this is to multiply a fraction by the denominator of the other fraction. So looking at 2/3, the denominator of the other fraction is 8. So we're going to multiply 2/3 by 8 over 8 to get 16 over 24. Now looking at 5/8, the denominator of the other fraction is 3. So we're going to multiply 5/8 times 3 over 3. And that will equal 15 over 24. Now they both have the same denominator, and we can compare them. 16 is larger than 15, so 16 over 24 is larger than 15 over 24. 16 over 24 is the equivalent fraction to 2/3, so 2/3 is greater than 5/8. Another practical example, a 5/8 inch drill bit is too small for a job, but a 3/4 inch is too large. What size drill bit should be tried next? Solutions on the next slide. Stop the video, try for yourself before we go over the answer. First, change both to denominators of 8. 5 over 8 already has a denominator of 8. To get an equivalent fraction for 3/4, with the denominator of 8, multiply the numerator and denominator both by 2, so 3/4 times 2 over 2 equals 6/8. Now they both have the same denominator. There's no size between 5/8 and 6/8. So we next need to change both fractions to have a denominator of 16 by multiplying the top and bottom of both fractions by 2. After multiplying, you get 10 over 16 and 12 over 16. So there is a size between 10/16 and 12/16, and that would be 11/16.